Hey everyone, Willow here. This week on Starting Out Solitary, we are on week 172, and the topic is working with animals in your practice. For me, this has been a topic on my list of videos to do for my personal channel for the longest time, and I know I will get to it when I'm ready. But I still wanted to share with you how I work with animals in my practice. Back in the day, pagans would sacrifice animals during or after a ritual or a ceremony, and they would use most, if not all, of the animal. So for example, the fur used to make coats, blankets, or rugs to keep warm. The flesh obviously eaten, the skin perhaps used to make bags, along with the intestine and the bladder, depending on the animal. Bones used to make knives and weapons, or any part of the animal used to make, tools, for example, in their practice. So magical practitioners would use parts of the animal in their practice, whether it be for healing or protection, the list goes on. And also they would make like a little divination tool where they would cast out by throwing the bones or what have you, and it will provide them with some messages. So again, as a divination tool. Now I don't use any of them in my practice that way. I know some who do. For me, unless they have been obtained ethically and humanely, I will not work with any part of an animal, including the bone, in my practice. And this is something that I've had to work with on a personal level, and this is why I wanted to do a video on my personal channel, and it probably is the reason why my bone collection isn't that big. It's quite small. But anyway, the bones that I do have been gifted to me by friends, and there have been 3 that I have found out in nature. Now, when I do find gifts such as this out in nature, I do like to bring it home and perform a little ceremony or a ritual to give it thanks, for sacrificing its life or for having its life sacrificed, and to honor the soul that once lived in it, and to let it know of my intentions and that I respect it, and what have you. So I will perform a little ritual, as I said, or a ceremony. Now I'll share with you a bone that I found about 3 weeks ago, and this is a pelvic bone. And when I found this guy, it was in one of the sanctuaries that we went to about 3 weeks ago. Definitely has almost fae energy, or dragon, if you like. Kernanos too was another thing that I got from it. Absolutely gorgeous. And when I found it, I was overwhelmed with joy and excitement and all that kind of stuff. So when I brought it home and performed the little ritual, I left it sitting on my altar, and a couple of days later I went back and I did a little meditation with it, and it asked me, so intuitively I feel guided in how to work with whatever it is that I'm finding in nature, and listen and pay attention to the messages that come through. And I do meditate. Meditation is one of my favorite go-to things to do in my practice. So I pay attention to the messages, and it specifically asked that I not work with it. The energies were quite heavy. However, it did appreciate what I had done for it so far, and for me to bury it within the parameter of my property, and it will protect me as well. So that is a little story that I wanted to share with you about that particular bone. But you don't have to have bones if it's something that you're not feeling drawn to or inclined to work with in your practice. There are other natural methods. Snakes, for example, shed their skin. Now, a very dear friend of mine shared this with me not too long ago, and I wanted to use this opportunity and also share it with you. Here in Australia, we have the most deadliest snakes out in the wild. So if you do come across some skin that has been shed from a snake out in the wild, be very, very cautious, because in actual fact, the venom or the poison can still be on that snake skin. And so if you have a cut, or if you totally forget that you've touched the snake skin and you put your fingers in your mouth, that venom is still deadly. So I wanted to share that little something with you. She has also gifted me some snakeskin from a python. So I do use snakeskin in my practice. I do have one that I got probably about 4 or 5 years ago that was gifted to me, and that sits on my altar. So when I'm tapping into the the transformation or healing or protection, or depending what it is that I need at that time, I will use the snakeskin just on its own. Otherwise, I will create a little blend from other snakeskin that I have, and add in there my herbs and oils, resin, what have you, and add a bit of snakeskin as well, and burn that on a charcoal disc. It's another way that I will use snakeskin in my practice. I have a little antler, I think it is, which is naturally shed, and I purchased that from Earthly Alchemy, who have told me, and I trust them, that it has been ethically sourced and naturally shed. So I do have a little antler, and that is my protection talisman as well that I wear. Shells as well, are bones from the sea. I will use shells in my magical workings, whether it be to represent the element of water, or again for healing, depending whatever it is that I'm feeling drawn to at that time. What else? It'll come to me. There was something that I was going to mention there, but it doesn't matter. Another way to work with the energies of an animal is to sit down and perhaps even draw it. I know a few times, I should have actually brought out my book. I do have various drawings of animals in it, and during that process, again, I'm huge on meditating. I become almost into a meditative state when I'm drawing, but also in the background I like to play music. So you can search on YouTube and find, for example, if it's a particular bird, the call of the bird, or there are new age songs, for a lack of a better word to describe, created by musicians in honor of a particular animal as well, that I like to play in the background while I'm drawing. You can even create using material or fabric or felt, the animal that it is that you wish to work with as well, if you're feeling inclined and if you're creative in that sense. That's another idea. Another way I use is obviously imagery, like it could be a magazine or a book I found. I'm really drawn to a particular way the animal has been drawn. I will use that in my practice. Birthday cards. I have 2 birthday cards from a while ago that I use in my practice as well. So that again is another way to use the energies of the animal. But one of my most favorite ones, or ways to work with animals in my practice, as I've said many a times before in my videos, is the ones that are out in nature, are the ones that are alive, are the ones that come and visit me. They provide me with messages, with insight. So paying attention to what it is that the animal is doing at the time, finding some information about the habitat of where the animal lives, what it likes to eat, how they procreate, all that kind of stuff can provide you with some additional information. For me, birds is a big thing. Depending on which way they fly, is I know if I'm going to receive good news or bad news. Working with nature in that way for me is such a huge thing, and that really sings to my soul, probably the most, but that's so far in my journey. Another way is obviously representation, so little figurines or what have you. You can make your own using clay, but this one has been gifted to me by a very dear friend of mine, and for example, it is just a branch, but to me this has the the energy of, it looks like an antler or the horn of a deer or what have you. So if I choose to work with it in that way, I can create something using this, or I can simply just use this on its own to work with the energy of the animal that I'm feeling connected, or that it represents to me as well. So that's another way. As always, I always have all these things flowing through my head, but anyway. If there are any other ways that you work with animals, I would love to know. So please leave a comment below. Otherwise, until my next video, sending you so much love.